Hello, 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 hello. Hope you are having a great day and a great evening. My name is Brian K McNeill, aka the Sales Confidence Coach, also known as Paw Paw B. Now, I've been telling these kinds of stories for about 30 years as a sales coach and a sales trainer and as a professional speaker. And some of the stories kind of stick out. So, a little while ago, I thought it might be fun if I shared some of these stories with you, my friends, in a segment that I call Storytime with Paw Paw B. And tonight we got a classic story. This story was from a book written in 1912. 1912. The story of Bunker Bean. This is the story about a man who was tricked into believing in himself. And we're going to have a good time telling that story tonight. But to get this party started right, let's get it started. Hey, yeah, come through, everybody come see. Story time with Paw Paw B. Yeah. If entertainment is what you need, story time with Paw Paw B. Yeah. Interesting, entertaining for sure. Stories for adults, parents to entrepreneurs. Got you laughing, you gonna have a good time. Still educational, this is what you want now. Come through, everybody come see. Story time with Paw Paw B. Yeah. If entertainment is what you need, story time with Paw Paw B. Let's go! All right. Have you heard the story about Bunker Bean? Bunker Bean is who we're going to talk about tonight. Now, let me tell you the story about Bunker Bean. Bunker Bean lost his parents when he was still a young boy. Both of his parents died when he was a young boy. And he grew up living from house to house, not really having any kind of stable place to live. And he was a real short guy. Not only was he really short, but he was kind of skinny and not very strong and not very athletic. And because he was short and skinny, other children made fun of him. So he was not very confident at all growing up. And as he became a man, and he grew up with all kinds of fears. He was afraid of everything. He was terrified of the police. He was afraid of the dark. He was so afraid of elevators. Every time he got into an elevator, when the elevator went down, he would feel like he was about to die every time. So he was full of fears. He was full of insecurities, and he wasn't doing very well in life at all. He was afraid of everything, and he ended up getting a menial job at a printing company, and he had ended up living in a small attic room in a cheap rooming house. That's where he lived in a small attic apartment, and he was fearful of everything. One day, another man moved into the rooming house, and he told Bunker Bean that he had a book on reincarnation and that he knew about reincarnation and he had some psychic powers, and he convinced young Bunker Bean that he had psychic powers and he knew about reincarnation. And he told Bunker, if you would give me some of your money, some of your savings, and some of your regular paycheck, I can show you who you had been in life, and I can show you how to fix your life. So Bunker Bean believed in him. So he gave this man some money out of his savings. He started paying him. And over time of him paying this man and this man advising him, the man came up with a miraculous discovery. He told Bunker Bean that life goes in karmic cycles, and you've been living on the low end of the cycle, but your low end cycle is ending. And in fact, you, Bunker Bean, had once been the great Napoleon Bonaparte. Yes, you used to be Napoleon. Napoleon Bonaparte, ruler of France, the dominator of the world, a great general. He had been Napoleon. Yes, you were once Napoleon. And once Bunker Bean believed that, he's like, wow, I once was a ruler of mighty armies. So he started studying about Napoleon. He was researching Napoleon, and he learned that Napoleon would win his battles in his tent before he even took the battlefield. He would map out his battles. He learned that for Napoleon to think was to act, how Napoleon had no fears, how Napoleon would work himself mercilessly. He would just work and lead. He got pictures of Napoleon on the top of a white horse with his saber drawn, directing soldiers in battle. He knew about how Napoleon got his troops motivated by putting medals on their chests and congratulating the troops, and learned all these things about Napoleon. He said, so if I had once been Napoleon, I'm going to start acting like Napoleon. So he started to stand more erect,
like Napoleon. He understood that Napoleon was short too. But even though Napoleon was short, Napoleon had been a great general. So he started to act like Napoleon. He started to, whenever he thought about doing something, he would just act, he would just do it. At work, people noticed that he was carrying himself different. And because he started taking more initiative and more courage and getting more things done, his employer noticed that. And all the other coworkers noticed it too. So they started promoting him. And he got new positions. He got people in charge of him. And he became a great leader because he believed that he had once been Napoleon. So he started to behave and his life got better. He started to earn more money. He was able to move. He still stayed in the rooming house, but he started to earn more money. But then his thought hit him. Napoleon only lived for 52 years. Maybe who else was I before I was Napoleon? So he started paying that psychic again and paid him again. Who was I before Napoleon? And sure enough, in exchange for some money, the psychic says, man, you're not going to believe this, but you're in luck. Before you was Napoleon, you had been the king of Egypt. You had been Ramses. You were once Ramses. Ramses was tall and handsome and the king of a mighty nation. He was the king of a mighty nation. I used to be Ramses, yes. So he started studying Ramsey. Ramsey dressed well and he had wives and all that kind of stuff. And he was a ruler. He was a king. So he started to act like kings. He got the concept, if I was once a king, I need to act like kings. So one thing he did was he went and got his some clothes tailored to fit his body so that he'd look more kingly. He had this thought in his head that in beggars' clothes, men are beggars, but in kingly clothes, men can be kings. So he started to dress much better because he had been a king. He started to act like kings. You know, kings don't worry about this. Kings aren't afraid of the police. Kings aren't this. So he started to act like a king. And he says, you know what? Kings were rich. So I got to get rich too. So he started studying commerce and he was starting to act like just like Napoleon traits. When Napoleon, when he thought about doing something, he did it. To think was to act. So he said, I got to get rich because kings are rich. And he set out over years' time to figure out ways to get rich. And he did. He got rich. He got into business for himself. He thought about his old employer. You know, if that guy had been around when I was a king, he probably would have been an accountant in my court or something like that. But he could have never been mighty because he didn't have really, really good character like I do as a king. So he knew that he had once been Napoleon. He knew that he had once been a king. So he started to act like Napoleon, started to act like a king, and he became rich and he became successful. And he would act kingly at all the time. All the time. And this went on for some years. He thought the way he thought kings should think. And then something bad happened. That psychic in the rooming house got arrested by the police, and because the police said that he was a fake and he's a scammer and he's going to jail for being a fake and a scammer. What? That guy was a fake the whole time? You mean I really never was Napoleon? You mean I really never was Ramses? Oh, he was tricking me. And Napoleon and Bunker Bean was upset about that. However, over the years when he thought of himself as Napoleon, over the years when he thought of himself as Ramses the king, he had developed habits. And those habits was hard to break. He had developed the habit of acting like Napoleon. He had developed the habit of thinking like kings. And he stayed that way. He just kept the habit. This has been the story of Bunker Bean, the man who was tricked into believing himself. He even had to, and then after he found out that that guy was a fake, in his study, he came across this thought. And the thought was, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So he was able to maintain his regality because he thought as a king in his heart. He thought as a great leader in his heart. He thought as a mighty warrior in his heart. And he was able to keep it. Believing in himself, he came finally to understand that when he believed that he was poor and timid, he was poor and timid. When he believed that he had been a great general and a great king, he was that. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This has been the story of Bunker Bean, the man who was tricked into believing in himself. I hope you found value in this story. If you find value in these stories, please feel free to share them. I come to you each week on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night to tell you a useful fiction story. Consider this like a bedtime story for you.
Hey, yeah, come through, everybody come see. Storytime with Paw Paw B, yeah. If entertainment is what you need, Storytime with Paw Paw B, yeah. Interesting, entertaining for sure. Stories for adults, parents to entrepreneurs. Got you laughing, you gonna have a good time. Still educational.
This is what you want now.
Come through, everybody come see. Storytime with Paw Paw B,
Yeah.
If entertainment is what you need, Storytime with Paw Paw B.
Let's go. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for sharing with your time with me. Again, if you found value in this story, share it on your LinkedIn. If you found value in the story, share it on your Facebook. Tell others about this story time with Paw Paw B. We do it Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you miss it tonight, catch it tomorrow. But I enjoy telling them. I appreciate you. I see all of the comments. Thank you very much. You have a beautiful rest of your evening.